This is Fam Electric Ghost doing live on the air with Tamara Fyke for the first time. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. I want to let people know before we get to the heart of your story, go through a little bit of business. There's a QR code on the screen right now. If you scan that with your phone, that's for Podmatch. Podmatch is how we find guests on the podcast. If you're a podcast host or a guest, you can use Podmatch to find and locate guests and hosts that match each other. So you can use that if you're looking to be on a podcast or you're looking to find guests for your podcast. Check that out. It's a cool tool. We've been using it for the last 2 years. But before we get into the heart of your story, I always ask every guest a couple questions before we go further. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me? That's a good question. Bringing hope to the world. It's a tough place filled with some rough people, and I think we all can use a bit more hope.
Yeah, lately things been going on. I can totally align with that. So I think it's really important for people. A lot of creative people, we take energy and we put things into projects to try to take what we feel as artists.
Yes.
And we tend to feel a lot because I'm an artist myself. You can see all my synthesizers behind me. Then we try to take that and have an understanding, like an empathy. We have empathy for ourselves, but we also have empathy for the people around us. And we try to take that work and then spread that message, and people align with it. They feel that vibe. And I think that's important. That's why I like to talk to creators like yourself. So like what makes you hopeful and why do you like to use art and music and storytelling to communicate with communities?
That's a great question. So there are a number of things that make me hopeful. My faith makes me hopeful. Time with children. I've been an educator for most of my career in addition to an artist. And so seeing the world through those eyes of innocence always gives me hope. Nature, being out in nature gives me hope. I took a long walk today, about 3 miles, and feeling the sunshine, especially after the ice storm that we had here in Nashville, that gave me hope. Music gives me hope. And I love to use the arts in order to help me, like you were just talking about, to help me express what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, to get it out from inside. I've found that if I keep it all bottled up, I usually start to spiral. But if I can express it in some way through writing or painting or singing, then it gives it a place. For that energy to move. And then what I found is that the more vulnerable I am with my storytelling through the arts, the more it gives other people permission to be vulnerable themselves.
Yeah, that's key. I think that's the key to most great artists is they are able to be vulnerable.
Yes, I think you're right. And I remember a voice teacher that I had a long time ago. I was in my 20s and I was studying at Fisk University here in Nashville, and Miss Bliss was my teacher. And she said, your job as a singer is to help other people feel.
Yeah, that is the job.
And I was like, what do you mean? Because I feel everything like you probably do.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, most people just turn it off like a spigot. Yeah. But your job is to help them turn those emotions back on.
Yeah, because we have empathy. And the thing about artists, I talk to like writers, is they're very observant of their own subconscious mind and the world outside of them. And the key to being a great artist is to synthesize the both of those and then come up with something that tells a story that actually resonates.
Yes.
And I think that, great artists are able to tell a story, turn a phrase, and it resonates and people's like, wow, I feel that. And then the audience or the people who consume the art, they have their own vision of what that story is. And they kind of take whatever the artist created and then they own it.
I agree.
And you don't always own what you wrote after you put it out the door.
And I think part of the hope, going back to that, is letting people know that they're not alone. Like when we as artists can be vulnerable and give people permission to feel themselves, then we all realize, oh, we're not alone in this human condition.
Yeah, I think that's because you're the founder of Love in a Big World. So
I am.
tell me about what that organization is and how it came to be and what it does.
Thank you for letting me share the story. It's been a long journey. So Love in a Big World creates a safe place for kids to ask big questions about their lives, and also gives a place for caring adults to help those kids learn the skills that they need to, so that together we can all build stronger and healthier people, families, and communities. So this work came about in 1996 initially as a nonprofit. I was just a kid myself, and I was serving as a substitute teacher in urban Nashville schools. And I was just looking at this clip the other day. My kids at the time, I was mostly working with sixth graders, and they were 12 years old. And they told me on a regular basis, I'm going to die before I'm 21.
Oh, wow.
And I was not okay with that. I was not okay with a baby looking at me and saying, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter if I study. It doesn't matter if I obey the rules at school. I'm going to die. And who cares? And so Love in a Big World was born out of that. Like, how can we instill hope? How can we let kids know that they do have a future, that their lives matter, that their value is more than wearing brand name clothing or sporting the latest Nikes,
Yeah.
or, their address. They have inherent value as a human being. And what can I do to help them understand that? So that's how Love in a Big World was born.
That's really positive, because I think a lot of times people do get caught up with like keeping up with the Joneses and consumerism, and they're like what do you have? I want it. I don't have it. And really, when you get into the arts, it's more about like what's going on in your soul, like what's going on in your heart.
Yes.
And that doesn't take money, right?
No.
They takes like the Victorians just have this idea, like the looking glass self. You look in the mirror, you dive in deep, and you try to tell that story. And Victorian poets would go into that. Tennyson, Wordsworth, and sometimes Blake was able to do it a lot less verbose. But the idea is like you tell that story. And that doesn't take money, it takes time. And it takes like honesty of looking at yourself and asking hard questions. And that might be painful, but it's worthwhile.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really love that you shared that. I was an English major in college, and so I'm familiar with those poets and the image of the looking glass. And it does take a lot of courage to be willing to practice self-examination and find out in ourselves what's working, what's not working. What do we need to change? How can we improve? And that's part of what we teach kids to do with Love in a Big World. We've got 24 character traits that we focus on. Things like courage and honesty, kindness, self-awareness, responsibility, respect. So we're just teaching them the basics of life, and how can we apply those to our relationship with ourselves, to our relationship with our friends, with our family, and with our larger community.
It seems like those are really important lessons, and we have to do a lot of work to try to unlearn what people are getting off the ether, off the net. Because like it seems like on the net, being the most negative, abrasive, abusive personality seems to draw a lot of attention. And so kids learn from what they see. And when they see that this tool that's supposed to be everything in the net is rewarding bad behavior, then that's not a good example. And so you have to work hard. Like when you're a founder of this organization, you got to work against that bad influence.
Yes. That is one of many.
One of them.
Yes, one of many. Yes. And you know what, though? What I've found over the years is that kids have an appetite for what is good. We just need to serve it up to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're longing to know that they belong. They long to be told, hey, you are capable. You are resilient. They want that positive influence in their lives. We as adults, the onus is on us to slow down enough to look them in the eyes and have the conversations that we need to have to let them know just how loved they are.
I think the one thing about being an artist or a musician or any type of creator is you learn that the perfection trap is not it, right? That a lot of times happy accidents and doing the work.
Yes.
Like you took your 10,000, 20,000 hours to get your voice, right? To learn your instrument, to figure out, what you're going to do with your craft. And along that journey, you make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And we have a problem today where I think a lot of people think you go to 0 to 100 and somehow you're perfect. You suddenly become the big billionaire, and you just did it all by yourself. Nobody helped you. You just had this amazing capability. You didn't make any errors, and that's not the story.
No.
The people have to give themselves a little more grace, and the permission structure. There's like, just because you're not perfect the first day you try something doesn't mean you give up.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's true. I think I've learned just as much, if not more, through my mistakes as I have through my successes.
Mm-hmm.
My failures have taught me what not to do next time. I tell my kids all the time, I've got some young adult children. I said, you know what? Now that you're in the workplace, I'm going to give you a little secret. You can learn just as much from bad bosses as you can from good bosses.
I probably learn more.
Yeah, because you realize what not to do and how not to treat people.
Yeah.
And then course correct yourself so that you can do better.
And this idea of one of the topics I was going to bring up is this: you had it on your profile is like "Lost Girl No More." Have you owned your story? Mm-hmm. And back before I get totally into that, everybody tells a story, whether they think they're a storyteller or not. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't like, well, I can't tell a story, but every day you're on this planet, you tell a story to somebody. Mm-hmm. And so like this idea, have you owned your story? I think is important. So maybe you can talk about that.
Sure, I would love to. So I'll give you some context for Lost Girl No More. So I'm a multi-dimensional artist. I sing, I write, I paint, and I create companies. In the fall of 2025, I hosted an art show called Lost Girl No More. And based on my work, and it was the first show that I did. Some of my friends were like, how did you get the idea to do this? I was like, well, at the beginning of 2025, I told myself, I'm going to do this year because I had thought about it for a long time. And so I found a space in town and I just went for it. And it was as much about my personal discovery as it was about showing my art, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because if you've ever performed in public before or shared pieces of art publicly, then it takes a whole lot of guts because it's like you're just turning yourself inside out for everybody to see. So as I was preparing for the show, the show was in September of 25. As in the weeks leading up, I still didn't have a name for the show. But I was starting to select the pieces and put them in order. And I realized that I was doing exactly what you just described. I was telling a story because the pieces in the show were created over a period of about 17 years. Mm. And during that 17-year period, I had gone through a lot, from being married to getting divorced to being a single mom to, you name it. It was just, so a friend of mine, when she had looked at my work, she said, you know what? You need to tell your story. I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't. And she's like, you need to tell your story. And so the vehicle of art became the best way for me to do that. And the show itself went through it. It showed the chronology of my journey, even from childhood on to the present. But what happened was I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this at all. People would start their way through because I would say, okay, enter here. And they would start their circuit through the exhibit, and they saw themselves in the pieces. They saw themselves in the story. Men, women, old people, young people, children, Black, white, Hispanic. I mean, like, they saw themselves and they're like, oh, this is me. I didn't realize that I was the only one who felt so lost. I didn't realize that I was the only one who felt like nobody liked me or loved me, or that I was left out, or that I was bullied, or, I mean, like, you name it, whatever the emotions are. And often what would happen is by the time they got to the end, they were just sobbing. And some would greet me because I stood at the top of the circle and was hugging people and thanking them for coming. But some would just run into my arms and I would just embrace them. And they would, I mean, racking sobs. And I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. It was incredibly moving. But it goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, that courage to be vulnerable, which gives other people authentic courage to be vulnerable.
When you create authentic art, it really speaks to people. And then they can actually put themselves in the situation. It brings that empathy trait that people try to hide it. A lot of people are told they got to suck it up, don't have empathy. Somebody's like, oh, it's their fault, and it's the otherisms. And so then you're told to not have any sensitivity, not to have any empathy. It's just, if you shut that down, be stoic, just think about profit, don't care about anything else other than winning.
Right.
Instead of the idea, what if somebody, your neighbor needs help? You're going to say, well, I guess tough luck on you. Or you're going to be more willing to say, hey, this thing happened. Maybe they need a blanket. Maybe they need some sugar. Maybe they need some bread. Is that hard to do? Does that make you weaker if you do that?
Right.
I think it's interesting when people start thinking about community. And artists, is like we have to, if you don't share with the community, no one's going to know you. You're going to be this artist like William Blake, the great Victorian poet. They found his stuff in a barn. But he etched it in acid in these plates. So the songs of innocence and the experience were found in a barn.
Oh my goodness. I didn't
He's
know.
One of the Victorians that nobody knew him in his time, but he felt his work was important. So instead on paper, he etched it in these metal plates. It has art that goes with each poem. But but he felt it was important, but he didn't know how to market himself. But he still felt the need to create the work. So even if you create the work and it's not even known in your time, there's worthwhile reasons to create that work.
Yes. I'm chuckling a little bit because for years I referred to my vault. So I had a vault of work on my computer. The art pieces themselves that I referenced were hidden in closets and chests around the house and in the garage, and it was all hidden. And then it was at some point last year, I talked with one of my friends, and he's like, Tamara, it's time to get that out of the vault. You got to move. Come on. And you're not getting any younger. And I was just like, well, at first I was kind of offended. And then I was like, oh, well, you're right. Because as you said, art is meant to live. It's not meant for us to keep to ourselves. And that vulnerability does help bridge community.
Yeah, it's hard because the haters, worry about the kids on the net. Because if you do a post and then you only get one like, then it's like, oh, I'll just stop. right?
Yeah.
And that's not what should happen. Like you need to keep on going. And if, the artist tenacity is like when nobody wants to hear you playing that violin to the point when you're in the orchestra on the front row,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody allowed you to not be so great when you were learning.
Yeah.
And didn't shut you down when it was hard to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a hard thing to do because sometimes when you hear yourself, you don't think you can do it.
Oh,
You don't even need somebody else to hear it. You just say, well, I can't do it.
mm-hmm. I think I am my own worst critic.
Yeah, that tends to be what happens.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that too from other teachers I've had or other artists themselves. We can really get in our own way, and somehow, and some days I do it better than others. Honestly, it gets in the way, and then it'll block the creativity.
Yeah.
And I've got to just silence it and just go, no, I'm going to do this anyway.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because a lot of artists, it's like, with musicians, we've got tons of stuff in the vault. We're, read about tons of musicians that are not very good judges of their own work.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to have like an apparatus around them because if you would left it up to them, their biggest songs would have never come out.
Wow.
Tons of artists is like they would have not put it out. They had to be prodded. Mm-hmm. They had to be pushed because they didn't think it was good enough.
I'm really glad that you're saying this because I'm in the process of we're mixing and an EP that I recorded in November. And here's the weird thing about it. I'm here in Nashville and my producer is in Atlanta. So they're mixing in Atlanta, and most everything that we've done, like the whole process of the album has been through this thing right here.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. Like when I first started doing albums back in the day, I was in the studio, it was the whole thing. Anyway, the phone is now the conduit. But I voice texted him the other day and I was like, Tommy, I got to tell you a true confession. I am having trouble. Like I can't listen to this anymore. And it's not because I'm not liking it. It's just that I'm being too critical. I can't hear it anymore. He's like, take a break. Mm-hmm. Let somebody else give the notes right now. Like, I got it. This is typical part of the process, but just step back. I was like, okay, thank you. Yeah. Which is another point why we need a team.
Yeah. A lot of times it's a team sport, even when you have a solo artist. There's a lot of people that say, the way a lot of times it's like you're doing a bunch of takes. Mm-hmm. Right? You do it like 100 takes. This is an extreme example. And an engineer or the producer comes back and say, you know what? You did all this work on take 101, but take 4 is really it.
Yeah.
Even though like there's some imperfections in take 4 will have more of an impact. And we should actually go with the earlier take. Mm-hmm. Because after take 4, you start destroying your own idea. Mm-hmm. And you get these honest, producers and engineers that will tell people like, you're not fixing it, you're making it, you're wrecking it. So sometimes, and it's case by case. In some cases, OEA did need to do it, but a lot of times, you can be your own worst enemy and kind of wreck their original intent of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of when we were in the studio and when Tommy did an interesting thing. Like I've gone in and sung the whole song down and hit it on first take, and I was like, no, he didn't let me do that. He's like, we're doing line by line. But I was like, okay. So we do a line and I'm thinking, that's no good. And he's like, that's it. And part of it was he could hear the emotion behind it, like you're talking about. Mm-hmm. There was something, even if it cracked a little or it was slightly off pitch or something like that, but there was that raw.
Yeah, it's like a painting. It's like I always look at sound as a painting.
Yes.
And sometimes when you put it down, it's very unique. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can't capture that moment sometimes. Yeah. And it's good to put it all down because when the people start mixing it and figuring it out, they say, oh no, this one actually is the right one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the judgment that comes in. And it's like, filmmakers have told me that too. Like when they're filming, that they have tons of material. And then they're like, no, this is the thing. And then, the actor will say, well, no, I did this. It's like, no, like the writer or the director will say, this is what it is.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know?
I think the other thing that has really surprised me about the process this time, because I recorded my first album when I was like 18. So technology has changed so
It
much,
shifted a lot.
just incredibly much. But I've been more aware of how different it is to be recording in the studio and how different it is to be performing live. Like they're very
Oh,
different
totally
experiences,
different. Yeah.
completely different experiences. And so I've done a lot of live work over the last several years here in town. And so I had to kind of shift my perspective when I was in the booth because it's
It's a totally different thing. Yeah, like when you're recording like for your master track that's going to go on an EP or an album, like a studio is like a canvas. And
Mhm.
you can do so many things. You can change your voice with effects. You can run all kinds of shadow vocals. You can build something up and layer your voice to get an effect. But when you do it live, you can't, unless you got backup singers, you can't do that.
Right,
Right?
right.
There's certain things live you have to change because when you go in the studio, you just have this canvas and you can go crazy.
Mhm.
And if you do the live version, it's not going to exactly be that unless you have all the backing tracks. Like it's not going to be what you did in the studio.
Yeah.
And sometimes the live audience, they don't want what you did in the studio. They want you to be present and actually
Mhm.
do that song in a moment.
I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because it reminds me, have you ever seen Samara Joy
Hmm.
live? Like
I've seen
she's
the video. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I got to see her. She was here in town at the Skirmerhorn last spring. And I went by myself intentionally because I wanted to be an audience member who was fully present. And I was absolutely blown away by her musicianship and her presence, like you're talking about. It was powerful. And when you have somebody who's about the music and about connecting with the audience rather than just a whole bunch of woo-ha,
Yeah.
it's really different. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's
like
a
if you get
really
it, like,
different experience.
remember back in the day, I'll be listening to like Robbie Robertson in the band, right? Like you listen to that Americana and they watching them play like in the last waltz and they're playing live with like Neil Young and Neil Diamond, Bob Bob Dylan, and
Mhm.
and Joni Mitchell, and it is playing like this fantastic, but it's not what was on the record. It's this
No.
these new versions that they did for live, and even if you've got live albums from these bands back in the '70s, it's like they would go and extend songs, they would change lyrics, they would just do
Mhm.
what fit, and they weren't into this mode where you're gonna hit it note for note. Unless you were like the Eagles, where they did that for a Hotel California tour. They started finding everybody if they didn't hit it note for note, and then nobody liked it, and then they all broke up.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what happened.
Well, part of what happened was
Yeah.
they started to say they had to hit it because it was such a big album. They felt
Mhm. It
like they
was.
had to hit it note for note. And Joe Walsh was like, I'm a lead guitar player. I don't want to do it the same every night."
Mhm. Mhm.
Feldman, he didn't want to do it the same way. So it started building pressure among some of these great musicians. Like you're taking all the joy out of it.
Right, improvisation. It does bring a lot of joy.
Yeah,
Mm.
because like you got to feel that moment. If you tell me it'd be so, is it classical? Do I have to do it just like where Chopin put it down? It's like, yeah, there's a space for that where you want to be exact. But even then, the conductor decides to conduct it in a way that's not exactly the way it really was originally ever played. They make a decision.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So there's always room, except that when we get in the box with all these DAWs and stuff today, I worry when people was like, it's like, oh, you're just going to do it right off the DAW. You're just going to play your backing tracks exactly the way you did it in the
Mhm.
studio. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why would I listen to that?
Right, right. We want it to be fresh.
Yeah, you just want to feel something. And like, to me, music is about feeling.
Yes. Yes.
If I go see a play on, an off Broadway play, and you watch some of these really great actors doing these one acts, if you actually watch a couple of shows, they do the lines differently
Mm-hmm.
because it's like that moment they decided that the character felt it a little differently, so he did a little different. That's what I like. I'll actually go see a play like twice, to see them do that because they will.
I really love that. Are you near that area?
Oh, I live in New Hampshire, so I'm not super close to New
Okay.
York, but I'm in the Northeast, so I can get to New York.
So you can get
Sometimes I'll play, like when I play my show, I've done shows, I do them in New York or Boston, but so I'm kind of a Northeastern guy. But yeah, I
We're
just
up in Pittsburgh, so I know I'm not quite up northeast as far as you, but same vibe.
Yeah, it's the vibe. It's like I just like that art kind of scene, whether it's the plays or going to a museum, just to feel somebody's work, to see like a gallery show, you see somebody's paintings, like and you get to feel that story.
Yes.
Like you were telling, like if you see somebody's like physical, sculpture work or painting work, it's like anything that's artistic, I just like dig it because my family, my daughter's a graphic artist, my wife writes plays and books, and I do music, so we're all into the arts and we respect it.
Yes, I love that. And you're reminding me of a trip that I took to New York several years ago for my daughter's 16th birthday. And one of the places we visited was the Museum of Modern Art.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And I got to see Van Gogh's Starry Night. It was captured by that. And then I saw the big wall of Monet's water lilies.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And I cried. Like I was just so moved by the beauty of Monet's piece. And my daughter, she's 16. So she just sits down on the bench. I'm standing there in awe. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, stop. I need some time because you're right. It's like the essence of the work and the essence of the artist. If we open ourselves up enough, you can feel that.
Yeah, it's just the appreciation. It's like, I was, trying to get people to understand like art history or art appreciation in this digital age is sometimes difficult because, we're kind of in this world where people wanted like 15 seconds. They want to get it. And it's like, you don't get everything in 15 seconds, especially with art. Right. And I try to luckily I'm in a house full of artists, so we don't run into that. But if we talk to other people, it's like, sometimes it's like, wow, they really aren't artists, are they? Like our whole family, they get the vibes like, but they're not really going to go that far with this. So we kind of know it's like, we can't talk to them about that because they're just not capable of going there. So, you got to read the room.
Yeah. And, I have noticed even the past week or two, I'm having to cut back on my time on social media because it just gets me into a yucky headspace. And so like hearing you talk about you and your family, I'm just like, yeah, I need to make sure that I stay present in the moment and stay connected with other people through art because it's so easy to get distracted.
Yeah, there's so much noise. I call it the noise.
Too much.
I'm a child of the 70s, right? We had 4 TV channels. One of them was PBS,
Right.
You got the radio and you got vinyl. And when you listen to an album, you listen to the whole thing.
Oh,
when you watch the movie,
those days. Yes.
You didn't have a phone or a PS5 or an Xbox to distract you where you watch the movie. Now they're telling people they have to have very simple plots because people can't deal with complicated plots. Really? I'd like a little bit of I don't want to know what it is after the first 15 minutes of the movie and figure it out.
I know. That reminds me, I watched The Mirror Has Two Faces. It's an old Barbra Streisand movie. The other night, I think it was on Netflix. And I was marveling at the difference in the storytelling from the era of that film to today.
Yeah.
Much more complicated.
Yeah, it's a lot slower. People like my daughter would say, wow, that's slow. He's like, yeah, it's slow. Because it's like it's intentionally slow because we don't have to speed everything up because you have a short attention span. Like the depth of some of the older movies and the speed of when the action things happen They
Mhm.
don't. Sometimes the really pivotal events don't happen for a long time.
Right.
And you're like, and some of this new generation of audiences, like they get bored if it doesn't happen right off the bat.
Mhm.
And you're
And
like,
there's a gravitas to it
yeah,
that is so healthy. It's because real life is like that.
yeah. It doesn't all just boom, bang, bang, bang. Is it
No.
got to be like fireworks every second of the day? You can drive my attention. It's like sometimes you need to look for the Easter eggs, think about what did that person say, and
Mhm.
then you see what happens. It's like, oh, that actually meant something. But if you're not, you're so hung up on being like distracted by the boom, bing, bing, dang, you don't miss the
Yeah.
subtext. You
Well,
miss the subtext. You miss the other things.
yeah. And one of the things I'm guilty of is wanting that quick fix of like, okay, let me get it done so I can cross it off my list.
Yeah.
Right? Like that sense of I've accomplished something. And so I received some work today from a graphic artist that is helping us with the images for the singles. And he starts off his email with, I'm sending you this. I want you to sit with it. And so I looked at it once, and of course I had notes already. And I was like, oh, he wants me to sit with it. Okay, let me look at it again. But I know like over the next, 4 or 5 days, I'm going to need to go back and look at it and think it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we're not used to that because we're just
No, because we wanted to make a
in a
snap
hurry.
judgment. Oh, I like it. I don't like it. Where
Yeah.
like telling you that's kind of like an old school way of looking at things. Because like sometimes you have to walk away. As a
Right.
musician, it's like I could be into something, spend like 2 hours on my keyboard. I'm just running the keys, and then I just tape it, and then I go back and I listen. 15 minutes into this hour-long tape, there's the hook. There's the intro. There's something. And then but I won't listen to it that day. I might wait because I played it that day and I want to give myself a little bit of space away from it. So
Mhm.
when I come back to it, I can say, no, objectively kind of look at it and say, oh, yeah, that was good. That wasn't good. And I think that's what we don't do. Like we immediately is like, let's go into the DAW and just do it.
Mhm.
And it's like sometimes it was hard to do that with the old tech, like go doing it on an old tape mastering unit with the old
Mhm.
board. Like if you had to actually, well, I actually got to play it. I
Mhm.
actually had to play that bass for 3 minutes and 33 seconds. I
Right.
actually got to play that drum for the same amount of time. And then
Yep.
maybe I spliced the tape, but I got to spend time. I got to spend way more time than I have to now.
Mhm.
Now I could just boom, boom, bang. I got it in 15 minutes. I got something. But like sitting with it, like you said, you can have a better outcome.
Yeah. And I think especially when you want to do work, creative work that is lasting, that people will come back to over and over again. I mean, like you look at, I'm here in Nashville, so my first references are Johnny Cash,
Yeah, Cash, I love that.
Dolly Parton, like they're iconic, right? You even talked about the Eagles. I mean, it's cross genre, but their work is so iconic because they took the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. I mean, if you look at what Cash was doing with Sun Records and the stuff he did with Dylan, he did Folsom Prison stuff. Is this like I like Cash because he just got down to it. He told this story that not everybody was telling. He put
Right.
himself in this shit, like the outlaws. He's like
Mhm.
the prisoner, like the
Mhm.
guy, the boy named Sue. Like he's gonna take that side. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's not what everybody does. So
Mhm.
he turned phrases and had these ideas that was coming from a different place, and people are so afraid to be unique. So afraid to have their own brand because it's like, well, there's this other brand X and they got 1 million customers. Let's be brand X too.
And I don't know about you with the work that you've done, but at times that fear of being different or the shame of maybe I'm not good enough, like when you get caught in that comparison trap,
Yeah,
that's another thing that can completely block off the creativity.
yeah, totally does. 'Cause if you spend all the time saying, well, I got to get this hook like John Fogerty, I got to do it like Clarence Clearwater, I got to do it like that. So why don't you just do what you had in your head?
Yeah.
And like what you had in your head, maybe you were inspired by CCR. Maybe you have a little Willie Nelson in there. Maybe you have a little Johnny Mathis in there. Maybe what I don't know what you got in there. Like, you got your reference points, but don't try to him exactly. Just live with what you're inspired by and let it kind of percolate. And then you have you. And what you do is nobody else does you but you.
You're like preaching to me.
That's what I say.
This is so
I always tell
good.
people, it's like you are your best asset. You know, that's what nobody else has. So like, if you make it work on that and take your voice and get it to be the best sound, and you take your how you turn a phrase and you tighten it up, but it's still your phrase.
Yes.
It's not Bobby Dylan's phrase. It's your phrase. It's the way you approach it, you know?
And that's all part of owning our own story, right? Because I've not walked in your shoes, you've not walked in mine. But when I fully own who I am and express that, that's when the connections happen.
Yeah, that's
it's
when
ironic,
people,
isn't it?
Yeah, that's when people say, like, I felt that. Because you're being honest. You're not trying to, like, oh, I'm gonna be like the guy's trying to sell this vacuum cleaner, and I know it's not that great, but I'm gonna sell it as it is. Like, this is the best thing since everything.
No, thank you.
Like, I'd rather actually come as like, hey, I actually got this thing, right? It's me. I'm telling my story. And this is the best thing because it's really my story. It's not a made up story. It's a real thing. And that's that people can feel that when you're on stage and you do that. When you put it on record and you do it, people know it when they hear it.
It's true. You're reminding me of a conversation I had with a new friend I met in Indianapolis in November, fall of 25. And he said to me, we were talking, sharing stories. He was telling me about him and his wife and kids. And I was telling him my story. And he's like, you do everything like from the inside out, don't you? I was like, yeah, I do. I hadn't thought about it that way, but like, it was really interesting to have him reflect back to me that mirror image that you talked about earlier, that art can be like how other people can be that mirror for us too. And he's like, oh, okay. And I was like, I learned something about myself today.
But I think it's like when you tell that story, like I always talk about sound paintings or sound movies. When you have a really good song, it tells a story like it's that great painting, and you're like, the paintings tell stories.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, there's a song tells a story. It's like a little movie.
Yes.
When they're well written, it's like this little mini movie, or it's like a really short, great American novel. And it tells this story, and you're like, wow. So the songwriter is the same as the authors, that they're doing a very short form. And they're brilliant at the short form, getting to the point. And they can get to that point, and they can have hidden meanings. They can have all kinds of subtext, but it's like they're able to tell it in a concise form. Where the other, the movies and the books, they're the longer form. And it's all art.
It is. Yeah, it's just different genres. One of the songs that probably was the hardest to record, but I'm also the most excited about, is the one that I wrote for my dad. My dad has Alzheimer's. He's had Alzheimer's dementia for about 6 or 7 years now. And I wrote a song for him, and I cry every time. Every time I hear it. But it's one of those stories, like being able to share my story. It's one of those stories that connects with other people, because there's so many of us who are dealing with aging parents, or parents who have dealt with Alzheimer's dementia. And I think that's what we need to give ourselves permission to do. We need to give ourselves permission to talk about the tough stuff.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. And my father, he passed away from it back in 2017. And that was a tough thing. And, a lot of people in the family, they didn't want to deal with it. And it took a long time to kind of deal with it head on. I mean, eventually he started getting the treatment he needed, but there was a lot of denial. At the
Yep.
beginning that he was like going into that zone,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody wanted this to actually feel like, oh wow, we're losing him.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to come to terms with it until there were the walkaways in the middle of the night, and in situations where dangerous things like trying to drive the car when you shouldn't be driving the car, all those things that can happen. So yeah, it's a hard thing to go through, when you deal with these like critical moments in people's lives. Is like sometimes things change.
Yeah.
People are not who they, that's just the evolution of your life. And then when you come to terms with it, you tell that story, and you actually tell the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And the long goodbye, as you know, is no joke. And the grief that happens as you're saying that long goodbye, and then the grief when you have the final goodbye, like just how do you process all of those emotions? And that's another reason why I'm so grateful for the gift of art, whether it's painting or whether it's music or whether it's writing. I use all the different mediums because
Yeah.
it's a lot of feelings.
Well, I think it's
A
great the
lot
way
of stuff.
multimedia is great, and a lot of artists like we kind of, if you're a musician, you work towards like the visual, like your stage presence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is visual. Like you work on like how I character, my how I dress, how I actually look. Like your stage self might be different than your normal day to day. I'm going to drink my coffee and have my
Yes,
breakfast or
she
talk
is.
about the weather. It's a different
Yeah.
person that you portray, like an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in the cover of your album, like what you want it to be. Like if you do a video, you work with video directors and stuff. So there's a lot of multimedia in the arts.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff that like it kind of co-mingles, and you find artists like, oh, they're painters. Maybe they're not big painters, or they're in multiple genres, because it's not always like we all get pigeonholed. Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
stage, this is your lane. But I find that a lot of people are more than what they say they are.
Yeah, well, wasn't it Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead who painted and then
Yeah,
ended up
he painted. Yeah,
having some of those paintings become ties or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
people are multifaceted,
Mm-hmm.
and we tend to like they say, when people want to say, oh, he's an accountant, he's an actuary, but the actuary might be a painter, right?
Right.
They might be
Right.
doing plays on the side. They might be doing, they're a coach, or they're doing other stuff. Everybody has a life. They're doing other things. They're not just one thing.
Well, and that's part of the frustration right now, I think, for a number of us as creatives. I'm wondering if you have felt this too, is that growing up, we were used to the boxes. We
Mm-hmm.
were used to the silos, and those have been obliterated.
Yeah.
And you can have these multiple disciplines that you practice, and they can all somehow come together. Here in Nashville, the term that everybody's using now is a creator. You're just like overall, it's just you're a
Is the
creator.
creator, yeah, because there's so many hats that
Yeah.
we wear that like you might design your stage set, you might
Mhm.
help design it, you might have put it down, you might work with the artist to do your record cover, you might be working with somebody on like a filmmaker and giving them
Mhm.
ideas for storyboard. Like you could be doing all kinds of things, and
All of it.
maybe you don't publicize that you're doing other things,
Mhm.
because it might be your side job income. But
Right. Right. You got
there's
to make a living.
yeah, there's like all this stuff that we are, and it's all
Mhm.
okay. You don't have to hide it as much. Maybe now in this creator world, you can be
Yes.
more open about it. Where you maybe have said, well, back in the day, you might have said, well, I'm only a bass player, or I'm
Mhm.
only a singer. But the singer might be like writing a song, but he didn't want to say he was writing a song. He said he's just a singer.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah,
writing
I
other
read
people's
that
songs, and
story.
people
Did
don't even know
you?
it.
Yeah, the other day there was a story about Carole King
Hmm.
and how she used to be a great songwriter, but they'd always put her name second.
Yeah,
And
she
then
was the primary on tons of stuff.
and then they didn't want her, like the record company didn't want her to do Tapestry,
Yeah.
but she did it anyway. And then what a
Then she
gift the
blew
world
up.
has
And she
been.
was like, she'd one of these great writers out of Tin Pan Alley, and they wanted to keep her in a box. And even then, they didn't want to credit her when she was
Mhm.
writing all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, it's the 70s. I'm going to break free. There's a lot of freedom going on. It's like, I'm going to,
Yes.
and then she like becomes like, boom, out the box, like a Joni Mitchell. She's like hitting the things like, wow, here's a singer-songwriter, a female singer-songwriter, just
Mm-hmm.
as powerful as Lennon McCartney, just as powerful as anybody else,
Yeah.
and able to just boom, slam it. And then you come to find out she had written all this other stuff. And it's like they were trying to hide her or put her in a box. And it's like, no, I won't be in a box.
I'm really glad that we're getting away from boxes.
Yeah.
As frustrating sometimes as it is to figure out the new creator economy, because we're all still trying to figure out how do you make a living doing all the stuff, right? In this new world of technology. But I'm really glad that we're free of the boxes.
Yeah. One thing about the tech, though, I get concerned because I'm a techie. I do software design as my day job. But the AI, I'm worried in the arts because you get these people like making AI bands and putting stuff on the streaming platforms to compete with like actual bands. And I'm like, I like all these tech bros, like I understand they like to do stuff, but when you start stepping in, I actually had a tech bro on my podcast one time and he told me that he thought the AI tech would eventually replace all real artists. And I'm like,
no,
I don't know where you're coming from. And I understand why you want to say that because you want to monetize that and you want to own it.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at him as like, you want to own creativity, and that's very negative.
You can't
because human creativity comes from the soul, and you're trying to tell me it comes from a machine.
Well, I don't know about you, but I in my business world, with Live in a Big World and some of the other things I've got going, I was working on a project and one of the tech guys sent me a pitch deck. Like he refined my pitch deck and he sent it back to me and I looked at it and I was like, something is very wrong with this pitch deck. Well, came to find out he had just run it through AI and sent it to me. And it was dark and it was missing the heart.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It was missing the soul of it. And so there was some really good stuff about it. Like it provided a good framework and I was able to take it and
humanize it.
And humanize it. Exactly. So I think if we can look at AI as a tool to help augment what we do.
Yeah, it's like a first draft tool, but we have is people are using it as a final draft tool. Right. My argument, I've always dealt with people in tech. It's like we can use it, like in tech, like I can use AI to check my code for what we call syntax errors.
Yes.
Maybe I made an error in the code and I'm trying to find it. The AI is very good at finding what I did wrong with the syntax and fix it. To me, that's a great use of the tool.
Absolutely.
But to go and have AI through a chat, to a prompt, build the whole program is not cool because what you get is something that looks like it works, but it can't handle what we call the unhappy path, which is the situation that doesn't, like the 80-20 rule.
Yes.
It can do 80%, but it can't do the 20. That's where the human comes in and handles the 20% that are not normal.
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Do it will make you think it did it, but it won't do it right. And that's the trap people fall into. It creates this 80-20 thing where 80% of it might look okay, but the 20%, and that 20% might be the whole thing. That might be the most profitable part of it, and you wrecked it because you didn't know that it did it wrong.
I'm so glad you're sharing that with me because part of what I'm building for Live in a Big World, I've got to start. I've been waiting to raise the capital for that project. And I just got to the point the other day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just do it myself. And I don't know how to code, but I've got a really great friend. She's a female founder as well who does. So we're going to get together and figure it out. And because all we need at this stage is to have something workable so we can bring some people on and try it out, a pilot, a beta.
It's really good for that. And it's good for checking syntax error. It's great for telling you like procedures that you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know what a stored procedure is and you could look like, what is a stored procedure that does X, like a login or security or whatever, something you don't know, right? So then they say, well, give you the examples and say, oh, well, I can tweak that and I could use it. So it's very good at kind of democratizing coding. What happens with AI is it can democratize the capability like the DAW did. for musicians. It
Mhm.
democratized the access to the studio. So if I get Pro Tools, suddenly now I don't have to be at Sunset Sound. I could actually do something without being there.
Mhm. And then without paying, what, 250 or more an
Yeah,
hour?
I had to pay it. It's like, oh, you only got 2 hours left. Then you're gonna
Mhm.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a bittersweet thing for me to hear all that and consider it because, Music Row is in my neighborhood, and those, again, the iconic studios where
yeah.
people used to come and cut their records, and to see that there's just not as much work coming through in the same way because so many they're recording out of their homes.
But it's 'cause of the cost. I mean,
It
if
is.
you asked a musician if they wanted to go to Electric Lady and do it there or go to Olympia, they would say,
Mhm.
"Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
they wanna go there. They can't afford to go there."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like if you get the chance that you can go to the studio, I would always take the studio over the DAW. I would take the studio over the DAW all the time if I had the budget.
Mhm.
And if
Mhm.
I have, like, the budget to do, like, an hour, I'll go do it, but, like,
Yeah.
if I can't, then I can't, but it's like,
Right.
that's preferable to have a recording engineer and actually have a real board and have Neve stuff and have all the cool stuff. Yeah, and have the real mics and the real preamps and all that stuff. Yeah, I'd rather have the analog stuff. I mean, I have Moogs.
Mhm.
I've got, like, like, actual analog synths in an
Yeah.
age of the digital and sample because I feel like that sound to me, I can tell the difference.
Mhm. Oh, of course you can.
So, all these kids today say, "Well, I can just use the plugin." It's like, "Okay, show me that Moog plugin, and I'll show you my Moog." And it's like, it doesn't sound the same.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like a real guitar versus like a sample
Yes.
guitar. Like a real guitar, the guitar is like, there's a
You have
reason
to
why
like
that
it.
guitar costs some money.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you know how it is. But
I
yeah,
do.
I think it's really cool that you have a lot of hats that you wear,
Thank
and
you.
you're able to kind of understand that that's like the artist creator. That's like where we want to be. Like every artist, if they have a vision, they want to be the control that vision. You get like a Stevie Wonder, you get like a Prince, you get Miles Davis. They have a vision. They
Yes.
wanted to do it a certain way, and they knew what they wanted, and they got to where they wanted because they need anybody to tell them. They kind of knew where they wanted to go.
I really appreciate you saying that because I think as any artist does along the journey, we can doubt ourselves. And so it's when you come out of the cave where you've been creating for a while and share your story, share your art with other people and have people go, "Hey, you're onto something." It like gives you the energy to go back into the cave and do more of
Yeah,
that
do it
creative work
again.
again. So thank you. I appreciate your encouragement
And I
very
think
much.
it's really important for artists to like stick with their dreams because a lot of times, like the 17-year-old artist that we get discouraged by the time we're 35,
Oh yeah.
and then it's like like I'm 58. I started when I was like 15, and I know a lot of guys that like their guitars are sitting in their basement or in the garage and never picked them up again.
Hmm.
And I'm around the guys that actually kept on doing it regardless of whether they made money or not.
Yeah.
They just loved
Because
doing it.
it brings you joy.
Yeah, they just did it because it wasn't about like getting on MTV or getting a
Mhm.
record contract. It's about like I love my Les Paul. Right? I love playing that Les Paul, and I'm not going to play it whether I get somewhere or not.
Right. Right. That's where I got to with singing a few years back. It was like, you know what? I do this because it brings me joy. And when I do sing and I see that it brings other people joy, that's even an extra motivation. It's not about the numbers. It's about what brings joy and freedom, like we've been
Yeah,
talking about, just the freedom to my soul.
I think when you put that out in the world, that the one good thing about the net is like you put something out in the world, and maybe people in your hometown don't like it, but somebody else in the world likes it. And so you have no idea how it's going to hit just because maybe your local group, people in your town is like, I don't like it. Somebody else in the world might love it.
That's
Somebody in
true.
Sweden or Norway or Australia or somewhere in Taiwan. It's like oh, I dig this. And then the next thing you know, it's like, wow, I'm in Taiwan because they dig it. It's like that's what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's why you should never just because the people around you that just physically around you don't dig it or don't get it is not a reason to not do it.
No, you got to stay true to yourself.
Yeah. So I want to let people know we do have your QR code up there, and that is for TamaraCreates.com. And if people take that and scan that right now, go right to their website. If people go to their website, what do they find there?
They're going to find samples of writing. They're going to find music samples. They're going to find a shop where they can buy some of the art. And they can join our mailing list too, and we'll keep you informed about when the new music drops.
That's cool. We do encourage people to take advantage of the QR code. That's the quickest way to get to the website. You can click on that URL below, both the one for the website and for the Instagram, on the platform that you listen to or watch the podcast. We've been on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. We will be on all the other major platforms for podcast by the end of the day tomorrow, so you'll be able to do the same thing. We do encourage people to replay and share with other people. And I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. And I want to make sure we all connect so that we can share your show with more people.
Thank you. Well, have a good night and have a good weekend.
Thanks. All right, you too.